Okay, 3-5/3-6. I'm combining the last two sections in Chapter 3 because it's a review from algebra. We're going to be talking about lines in the coordinate plane. Today you should be able to graph lines and write equations in slope-intercept form. You should also be able to classify lines as either parallel, intersecting, or coinciding. So the first thing that we need to talk about are slopes. Slope, remember, is rise over run. It's basically how steep a line is. And the equation you learned in algebra was m stands for slope, is you subtract the y's, so y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so here are some pictures of what slopes look like. Positive slope is rising, a negative slope falls. You read it just like you read most languages, left to right. So it's rising as you read left to right, it's falling as you read left to right. A zero slope is one that is horizontal. A horizontal line always has a zero slope, and an undefined slope is a vertical line. Okay, so for number 1, 2, 3, 4, I think 5 and 6, yeah. I want you to just look at this picture and find the slope of these lines. So for example, AB, if you look at AB, this is a horizontal line, and we know that the slope is 0, so your answer would just be m slope equals 0. If I wanted to find the slope of AC, well, if you look at it, it looks like it's falling, so it should be a negative. And if you want to just count, you can just count rise over run. So how many times do you have to fall to get down to C? C goes right around here, right? So I have to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since I'm falling, that's negative. And then how many times do you have to run over? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this equation would be -5/6. So you can use the picture to count rise over run if you want to. So go ahead and try to do that for 3 and 4. I'm going to show you how you can, rather than having to graph it, you can use the equation y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to find out what the slope is. So here I give you the points, the ordered pairs, not on the graph. So remember, your first one's always your x, and the second number is always your y. And it doesn't really matter which ones you consider y2 and which one you consider y1. It really just matters the order that you do it. So I'm going to take my y's first. And I'm going to go from this one first. You don't have to do it this way, but this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do 1 minus. It's always minus. And then this y is -1. Those are on the top. Now I have to do my x's. So since I chose from this ordered pair first, I have to choose from this one again. So 3 has to come first, and notice it's always a minus again, and then I can pick from this other ordered pair. So here, that's how I can use my slope equation. Remember, when you have two negatives right next to each other, those change it to be a positive. So 1 plus 1 is really 2, and 3 minus 2 is 1, so your slope is 2 over 1. If you wanted to check it, you're more than welcome to graph it and count just like we did up here. So you're responsible for doing 3, 4, and 6. I need to see it in class if you want that stamp. Okay, some more vocabulary. This is all review, again, from Algebra 1 last year. But let's see if I can get rid of this stuff. Oops. Okay. Sorry, it's breaking out on me. Okay, slope-intercept form. You guys talked about that a lot in Algebra 1. Slope-intercept form is the equation y equals mx plus b. So now we're actually going to be graphing lines. When I say m, again, I'm talking about slope. And when I say b, I'm talking about your y-intercept. So to graph lines, you're going to start at the b on the y-axis. Let me write that in black. So start here on the y-axis. Whatever that point is, you're going to start on the y-axis. And then from here, the slope is going to tell you where to go. You're going to go up and over, the rise over the run from there. So example, I'm going to graph these two equations for you. You guys are responsible for graphing these last two. Again, if you want to get that stamp, you need to have it done before class. So here's my lovely graph. You can draw one on your notes if you want to get points. And you know, I'm sure yours looks much better than mine is. Okay, so here's my coordinate plane. This horizontal axis is your x-axis, and this vertical axis is your y-axis. And I'm going to start by graphing this equation. Now, I know it might be hard for you to see, but it says on your piece of paper, y equals 2x minus 3. You're going to look at that number that does not have an x with it. That's your b. That's your y-intercept. That's this part right here. So that means I have to start on the y-axis, this vertical axis, at negative 3. So I'm going to go down, and here's my first point from that line. Now, after you do that, you're going to start with your slope. Now, remember 2 is the same thing as 2 over 1. So that means I'm going to go up 2 times and run over once. So from this y-intercept, I'm going to go up 2, 1, 2, and then I'm going to go over 1. So here, and you could keep going if you want to, up 2, over 1. So here is that line. And I'm going to title it so I can make sure I remember. This is y equals 2x minus 3. Okay. So we did this first graph. If you notice, the second one doesn't have an x. That's because this is a special line. This is called a horizontal line. So in your notes, I want you to write down the horizontal lines look like this. They always look like this. They're not diagonal. And they're always y equals a number. There is no x anywhere. It's just y equals a number. Vertical lines go straight up and down like this, and those, instead of being y equals a number, those are x equals a number, and there is no y in that graph. And I can show you in class a shortcut for how to remember what's horizontal versus vertical. So in this one, y equals negative 3. Well, it only hits y at negative 3. So here's negative 3 again, and it's a horizontal line. It's always going to hit negative 3. So this is how you would graph that line. And again, it's y equals negative 3. Okay. Last thing we're going to do really quickly is we're going to start writing those linear equations. So I'm going to do 8 and 10, and you guys are responsible for 9 and 11. So if you want points, you need to do 9 and 11. Okay, so it says writing linear equations. When I say writing linear equations, I want you to make sure it's in y equals mx plus b form. We're going to do slope intercept. So for 8, it says write the equation of a line with slope of 6 and through 3, negative 4. Well, slope, remember, stands for m. So right away, I know that I could start off with y equals 6x plus b. But now I don't really know what my b is. To find out what my b is, I'm going to take these 2 points and I'm going to plug them in. Your first one's always your x, and your second one's always your y. So in this equation, I'm going to plug in 3 for x, and I'm going to plug in a negative 4 for y. And now if you look at that same equation, once I've plugged everything in, I'm going to solve for b. So negative 4 equals, this is 18 plus b, and then if you subtract 18 from both sides, you'll get b equals negative 22. And remember, I wanted the equation. So the last thing you need to do is take this and plug it back into this original equation. So your final answer is y equals 6x minus 22. Okay. Number 10 is a little bit harder because they don't give you the slope. In number 8, they gave you the slope and a point. In number 10, they're giving you 2 points. So that means the first thing you're going to need to do is figure out what the slope is. Then you're going to use the slope and find out what the y-intercept, what the b is. Okay, so slope, we're good at this, right? We're going to do the y2, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So when I plug that in, here's an x, here's a y, here's an x, here's a y. Okay, so I'm going to take my y's and I'm going to subtract them. So 0 minus 2, and then I'm going to do negative 1 minus 1. Notice that the order I'm doing it matters. So my slope is negative 2 over negative 2, and I can simplify that and say that that's 1. So my slope equals 1. That's important. Now, once I have my slope equals 1, it's the same thing as number 8. You get to pick a point, any point you want. I want to choose this point because 0 is a really easy number to work with. So what I'm going to do to find b, I'm going to take my slope equals 1. I'm going to plug it into this equation. Y equals, now my slope's 1, so 1x plus b. Now I'm going to take these 2 numbers and I'm going to plug them in as well. My y is 0. My x is negative 1. And I'm going to solve for b. So I have 0 equals negative 1 plus b, and then I add 1 to both sides, and I get b equals 1. And then the last thing that I need to do is take my equation, y equals mx plus b, and I need to fill in what I just solved for. I solved for slope, and I solved for b. So I'm going to plug in my slope and I'm going to plug in my b into this equation, and my final answer is y equals, my slope was 1, and my b was 1. And that's my final answer. Okay, so try to do number 9. 11 is the hardest question. We'll talk about example 4 in class. And the fun fact of the video, did you know that the term nerd, the word nerd, actually came from a Dr. Seuss book called If I Ran the Zoo. If I Ran the Zoo. So yay for Dr. Seuss, and yay for nerds. Hooray!